to another episode of our live stream, My Journey to the Trinity. I hope you're having a good day. And today is October 7th. Now, it's already been October 7th in most of the world. It's almost the end of October 7th for most of the world. But in California, it's October 7th. And in Arizona and here, it's October 7th. And so, I just want to talk a little bit about it. I kind of feel a responsibility to talk about it as a Palestinian. And I know a lot of people say, oh, those are things as a Palestinian. And that's what I've been told I am for most of my life. And so I'm American, born and raised in America. So it's not like I'm, dual loyalty or anything like that. Just talking about my heritage is from the West Bank, and I know even that sometimes now they call it Judea Samaria. So it's like in America, you can't say nothing without offending somebody. Everything is offensive, and so anyway. But I do feel a little bit of responsibility to talk about October 7th. Here again, there's a picture. You see on top is the hostages who were kidnapped. Some of them, not all of them. There's still over 100 still in Gaza. And then the bottom part is the bombardment of Gaza. It is what is left. And I lived there for 6 years. I was a missionary there. And so I'm very familiar with those buildings, with those areas, with those streets. And so I'm got lots of friends there. I've lost friends. I have friends who've been injured. I have friends whose very close family members have been injured. And so, it's... So anyway, I just want to talk a little bit about October 7th. I remember October 7th. I was asleep, and then I woke up. And when I woke up, it was a Saturday morning. And Saturday morning, when I saw the news, I saw what happened. Not everything. It was still, information was still trickling out. I think when I woke up, they were saying 300 Israelis had been killed. That's what I remember. They were saying like around 300 Israelis had been killed. It was still early morning. And then as time went on, we kept watching the news, and then it became 500, 700. And then it reached, actually at first they said it was 2,000 people had been killed. That's what they said originally. Like by the end of a few days, they said 2,000 people. But then they brought down and said it was about 1,200 had been killed. And so I'm a little bit familiar with those areas. This is the map of the area. Now, I lived in the Gaza Strip. I lived in the northern part. It was called where you actually have Gaza. There's a city called Gaza in the north. That's where I lived when I first lived there. And then I moved to the south to a city called Khan Yunis. And if you've been watching the news, it's been in the news a lot, Khan Yunis. And then I was I spent a lot of time in Rafah. And you've heard about Rafah. It's been in the news a lot as well. And the city that you can see there, Deir al-Balah. Now, even though 99.9999999% of the population of Gaza is Muslim, Sunni Muslim, there is a tiny Christian presence in Gaza. It's about 1,000 people now, 1,100. When I was there was about 3,000. but now it's about 1,000 Christians, and it used to be a Christian. It used to be Christian, and Der el Belah, Belah is Arabic word for dates. Like not dates like you go on a date, but date like the kind you eat, from a date palm tree. And Belah is like before it actually gets ripe. You call it Belah. And Der means convent. Der means convent. So Der el Belah, it's the convent of the dates. Okay, so that's what that means. And that's the major city in the center of Gaza. It's like, if you could say the four major cities would be Gaza City, Deir el Belah, in the center. Then south of Deir el Belah, there's Khan Yunis, and south of Khan Yunis is Rafah. And you've heard about all of those have been very, very prominent in the news recently as a result of the Israeli war in Rafah against Hamas. And now you look at these red dots around there, those are the areas that were attacked. Those are the areas, apparently, the Hamas rebels broke through. Now, you hear different things. I heard up to 119 different spots in the fence that they broke through to go to Israel and to go attack these kibbutzim. Kibbutz is like a farm, kind of a commune type farm where Israelis work and grow food, and a real communal type of a situation. But I mean, they're regular buildings and houses and schools and hospitals and everything else like that too. So most of them were. You can see how close, and then you see the major city. If you go to the right there, the major city there to the right called Beersheba. Beersheba. Sheba comes from the word Shiva in Hebrew, which is seven. In Arabic, it's Saba. Beersheba is how they say it. And Beersheba was where Abraham lived. Abraham was there. And that's not too far away from Gaza. It's only like a few hundred miles from Gaza. And so that's like the major city. But the attacks happen mostly near Gaza, near the border with Gaza. And so apparently around 6,000, I mean, I've heard around 6,000 Hamas fighters and others broke through the fence and went and did the massacre, killing 1,200 Israelis, kidnapping around 250. About 110 were released, and during in the early stages of the war, when Hamas was really outgunned by Israel and they were under a lot of pressure, and so they agreed to a few day ceasefire when they would release like half of the hostages. Okay, but they're still holding over half of them. Okay, about 110 or so are still being held. Most of the ones who are being held are the men, but there are some children, babies. The real famous family is the Biba family. They were their children are still being held, and I believe the wife is still being held. So here's another map. Okay, now this is from a different angle. Now here you can see Jabalia, which is a very big Jabalia. There's two parts to Jabalia. Jabalia is both a refugee camp and a city. So there's the city of Jabalia and there's the refugee camp of Jabalia. And the refugee camp is where the refugees from like the 1948 war and the 1967 war. See, because those are the two big wars. It was the 1948, which was the Israeli War of Independence, and then 1967, which was also called the Six-Day War, uh, when Israel took over Gaza, they took over the West Bank, they took over Jerusalem, and parts. Um, I'm not sure if they took the Golan Heights at that time. I think the Golan Heights was in 1973 that they took it over. So, but anyway, Gaza came into their possession in 1967. Gaza became part of Israel at that time, and there were actually good relationships between Gaza and Israel. Uh, you know, Israelis used to love to go to Gaza like on the weekends, and they would go and buy everything from their souk, from their markets. And there was good relationships between the Israelis and the Gazans. There wasn't um, this animosity that there is now. Um, and many, many Palestinian men from Gaza would go work in Israel, and they would make a good living, 10 times better than what they could make in Gaza itself. And so they really wanted to go work in Israel. They worked in construction. They did a lot of the construction work in all of these kibbutzim around the Gaza Strip. It was the Palestinians that built them and worked. So, hello, Laloi, God bless you. And so these were, there was good relationships at the beginning. And on Saturdays, the Palestinians loved when the Israelis would come because they would buy everything. Because it was so much cheaper to buy it in Gaza than to buy it in Ashkelon or Ashdod or in Beersheba. So they would love to go to Gaza, buy everything, and go home. And they did that all the time. So it was very a symbiotic relationship. Both benefited from it. And then there was the work situation. But then things started getting bad, especially with the first Intifada, which was like in 1989. And then violence started erupting, and so Gaza was being more and more closed off. And by the time I moved there in 2001, shortly after September 11th. I moved to Gaza, and I lived in Gaza City at first. See Gaza up there at the top. Um, I lived there for 3 years. I worked with the church, and then after 3 years, I moved down to Khan Yunis, which you cannot see in this map. You can see it maybe in this map. It's south of Deir el-Balah, right where it's written Gaza Strip. That's where Khan Yunis is. This is like the major city of the southern Gaza Strip, and it's right next to Rafah. And so that's where I lived when I was there. And so, I was working as a missionary. I had found the word or name Palestine there for. Oh, you did find the word Palestine in the Quran? Can you tell us where you found it? If you tell us, okay, Laloy says that they found the word Palestine in the Quran. Because in there, now I will tell you that you may find it in the English translations. You may find it in the English translations, but not in the original Arabic. Okay, in the Arabic, it would be this word. Let me write it down for you. The word is Philistine in Arabic, okay? And excuse me a second, put my coffee down. Phyllis. Okay. It's written like this. Oh, Leloy says in the back cover it says printed in Palestine. Actually, I'd be surprised if it was. I don't know if they print Korans in Palestine, but yeah, this is how you write it, Philistine in Arabic, and it's not in the Quran. I don't even think it's in the Hadith, to be honest. Okay, now Israel is Israel in Arabic, and uh, uh, so yeah, so there you have it. There's the a little bit of the history of the Gaza Strip, and my experience there is very limited. I only lived there six. I lived there 6 years. I'm familiar with it. I know the areas. Been all over. Um, been there in during warfare, during times of war. When I was there, there was a battle, a war called the Second Intifada. Intifada means uprising, and there was the first one was like 1989. This was very uh, widely described in the news, and kids would go throw rocks at Jewish soldiers, and it was bloody, it was bad. But the Second Intifada was even worse, with bus bombings and lots of bus bombings and lots of violent attacks, and very, very painful time. And this was from like 2001 until around 2004, 2005. And I was in Gaza from 2001. So I was there for the first part. And what would happen a lot of times is there would be like a bombing in Jerusalem. Some suicide bomber would go bomb himself in a restaurant, or I remember there was once a bombing in Sabaro's Italian food restaurant on Jaffa Street in Jerusalem. I remember that one. Then there was one. There's so many. There's one in Tel Aviv that I remember. A guy had a guitar and killed like 21 kids. And yeah, it was a very, very bad time. Very, very violent, very painful. And so during that time, that's when they started closing off Gaza. And they put a fence around Gaza. And it's a very high fence in some places. In some places, it's not that high. But it's a very well guarded fence because of the attacks that were happening. And so, anyway, I went to live there in 2001, and I was working as a missionary. And there's lots of amazing things that happened while I was there. The Lord really blessed me in my ministry there. I was able to. I used to lead worship at the church, and then I would also preach sometimes. They would laugh at my Arabic. I had a Falahi American Arabic, so it was broken on two fronts. But it was an amazing time. And I wrote a letter for the New York Times. I don't know if they're going to publish it, but if they do, it'll probably be in the next few days. But one thing I said in this letter is that you never leave Gaza. You can be there for a while and then go home, but you never leave Gaza because it's always in the news. Some cities like Hamburg, Germany, say, or Tokyo, or Beijing, or Honolulu. Something. These are very important cities, very, very powerful, 100 times more richer and more influential than Gaza, and yet they're not in the news as much as Gaza is. Gaza is constantly in the news, and especially now. with what's going on there. And so yeah, you never leave Gaza. My heart's always there. I'm always worried about my friends. I'm always being contacted by them. They're telling me what's going on, telling me about the situation, about where they are. They've been moved from here to there. They've been constantly moving back and forth. Their homes have been destroyed. Their relatives have been killed. It's it's very real, very painful, and so you can't talk about it. I can't. Nobody can really easily, but pretty much what happened. And I know there's people who disagree with me about this, especially Palestinians. Uh, that this all began with October 7th last year. Last year on October 7th, this began. And so now a lot of people will say, no, it didn't begin October 7th, it began in 1948 when Israel came. And so anyway, I just want to look at some pictures. Let's look at some pictures about October 7th, and maybe this will kind of give us a little impetus about how to talk about it. There's so many ways to talk about it. And there's so many different aspects of it. There's so many different sides. There's so many different grievances. There's so many different problems, histories, legitimate grievances on both sides. And, and so anyway, let's just look at some pictures. Let's talk about it and see if this leads to something, leads to opportunity to really talk about some things. And if I feel there's someone who has something very meaningful to say that they would like to share, if you would like to share, just go ahead and say so. And then, maybe you could come up and talk about it. If you disagree with what I'm saying, come up and you can talk. So, okay, here's a picture of one of the kibbutzes, and there you see a bunk bed. You know what? I've seen that bunk bed. I have seen a bunk bed just like that, as a famous bunk bed. Somebody came up with that. This very popular bunk bed. I've seen it. I've seen it before. Now, I haven't seen this particular one, but I've seen ones like it. And you can see there the blood on the mattress. And when they must have gone in and shot it up, it almost, when you see the white and black on the side there, you kind of think, oh, that looks like a Palestinian keffiyeh. But it's actually looks like animal on a blanket with lots of blood on it. And I'm not sure exactly where this was, but this is one of the kibbutzim where the Israelis were killed. Yeah, kid's bed. So, okay. Now this must have been almost immediately after the event, for the blood to be that red, because usually blood starts turning black. And here it's very red, very fresh. Here's a picture of the some of the cars on that road. You can see that it looks like cars were just burned. And I remember hearing about that they came in and they burned cars and blew up cars and stuff. And then it looks like some of the cars were actually occupied, and then people got out. You see the open doors, people running out. And look at all the open doors. And now, it could be that the Hamas guys came and opened the doors after the people left. I don't know. But it seems to be a very limited thing. But all the cars have open doors, which looks like somebody went and opened the doors or somebody ran out. It looks almost like those open doors mean people were in the cars and then they ran out. Yeah. So okay. Now here is a. I don't think that's an Israeli. Yeah, that could be an Israeli soldier there, running. From one of the kibbutzim. One of the apartment complexes. Isn't it funny? Look at those apartment complexes. Don't they look similar to American architecture of apartment complexes with the stairway there and the upstairs and the slanted roof, with the trees around it? Looks very much like American. Well, a lot of these guys are Americans too. They're dual citizens. And now I do believe this is an Israeli soldier because of it looked like the patch on his arm there, uh, or her arm. I'm not sure if it's a girl or a guy. In Israel, everybody has to join the military when you're 18, except for the ultra Orthodox. So, okay. Where am I now? Okay. Okay, let's. Okay. Okay, I think it's the same one there. Now, here's a picture of the Palestinians when they had taken over a tank. And so everybody's taking a selfie there using their. This was, I'm sure, a very, very famous picture. It's a big deal. See, there's the fence. You can see the fence in the back there. You can see the fence. That's like the fence between Gaza and Israel that they cut through, or they flew over. Remember the hang gliders? There's a lot of hang gliders that went through, that came through. It was a very, very meticulously planned attack, and you could kind of see in the back there, in the back of the gun of the tank, you kind of see the fence where it was broken, where they broke down the fence and they came through. Okay. Yeah, this was a very famous picture. And then there was this where you by the bus, looks like a bus station or something, and a bunch of people were killed there. There's their bodies. I don't like to look at stuff like this, but I think we need to look, and see. I know there's some people that have no choice; they have to look. One one of the things I felt when October 7th happened, because like I said, I used to live there and got friends there, got family there, and one thing I felt like is, what, our lives don't belong to us. Uh, our lives don't belong to us, and we belong, to the Lord, and we have responsibility to the Lord. And at any moment, we, our world could be turned upside down, and it's just very difficult to know exactly what to say about something like this. Yeah, they call it resistance. Yeah. So here's another one. Okay, here you can't. Now this is a tent. Now I've seen these kinds of tents before. They were used. I think this is by the music festival. That this was by the music festival, and this was a tent. Probably you can see the fan there. Some other. Okay, looks like emergency ambulance equipment in the back there. maybe a dumpster, some other stuff, and there's so many bodies in here. There's so many bodies piled on top of each other, and yeah, look and see. Okay, now this was a very famous picture of a very famous hostage. Her name was Noah, Noa, and it was particularly she's the one that there was a video of. Remember, there was a video where she's crying out to her boyfriend, help me," and these two guys, that fat guy, see the fat guy in the front with the beard. Um, Seems like he's very well fed, you know. And then there's another fat guy on the back, and they're both pretty fat. Maybe they're brothers or something. But they put her on a motorcycle. This is on the motorcycle, by the way. I remember seeing the fat guy on the motorcycle, and so she was in between them on the motorcycle, crying out, help me, telling her boyfriend to help her. But yeah, he wasn't, because they took him, and they had captured him as well. Now he was near her, but he was captured, and he wasn't able to help her. And but I think he's still in captivity, because they were both on their way to Gaza as hostages, and I think he's still in Gaza if he's alive. I'm not sure if they killed him or not. But she was released. She was released a few months ago, and is trying to build her life again. And so she's one of the most famous. Hers was one of the most famous videos when they kidnapped her and they put her on the motorcycle, and there was a guy in front and a guy behind on a moped. It was like a moped, and I mean, that fat guy, I don't think he would get on a moped, but it may be a motorcycle, and took her into Gaza there. But she has been released. Okay, she was recently with there was a small release of like a few. I can't remember exactly how they managed to release, like about 3 or 4, or if they freed them. I don't think she was among the freed ones. There was the 3 that they freed in Deir el-Belah or Nusayrat. There was 3 that they went in and they freed them, set them free. I kind of think that she was part of some agreement. It wasn't. I can't remember if they released some prisoners or something, and they were able to get her released as well. Noah is her name. Yeah. Okay, and then we have this one. Oops. Okay, this may be that picture. See that fat guy in the front? There's that. You can see the fat guy there in the front. Yeah, that looks like him. And then there's his brothers, or whoever that is in the back there. And they have the girl. She's barefooted between these 2 guys. Okay, Halawa on the side there, on the I don't know if that's on the motorcycle itself, but it says Halawa. Halawa means sweetness. Now I don't know why or Kalawa. I think it's Halawa, which means sweetness, and it's also a name of an Arabic sweet that they make from sesame seeds called halva. In English, they call it halva. But in Arabic, it's called halawa. We used to eat it for breakfast all the time. Now, there's these guys, it looks like they were waiting for them. Another fat guy, look at that gut. He looks well fed, huh? And he's and looks like they were waiting for them. This guy's holding his hand up. I'm not sure, as if he's signaling. Uh, and I've been to these fields, you guys. I recognize these fields, and with Gaza in the background there. And then you got the guys in the background trying to help them. Uh, it makes you wonder how many of these guys are still alive. They may be dead by now. Okay. See if there's anything else. There's another motorcycle there in the back. There's another motorcycle. Yeah, I recognize these places here. Is she half Chinese? Oh, okay. Laloy says that she's part Chinese and that China has a very good relationship with Iran and also with Gaza, because I know that Gaza gets a lot of imports from China. So maybe the Chinese influenced Hamas to release her. Because she does look Oriental, I don't know, but that's what Laloy says. So, yeah. But she was released recently. In fact, let's see. Noah. It's kind of, her name is spelled in a peculiar way. Okay. Okay, Noah Argamani. Okay, she spoke today at a rally. Let's see what she says. Okay, here's something that Noah Argamani, who was a hostage, who was rescued by the IDF. Okay, so she was rescued from Gaza earlier this year, spoke at a rally advocating for the release of the rest of the hostages on Sunday night, almost nearly 1 year after the October 7th massacre. She said, "I still ask why. Why did this happen? My beloved Vinatan and 100 other abductees are still in Gaza," she said. "We need to do everything to return the living hostages to their families and the dead hostages for proper burial in Israel." Okay, so that's what she said there. That's Noah Argamani. Okay. All right. So, yep. Let's see this one. Okay, now this may be her boyfriend right here, because I remember he looked like that kind of, and he was. And look at that kid that's got him there. Young man there. Who knows if they're not related? A lot of the Palestinians have Israeli DNA, so they may be related. Who knows? But anyway, there he is, taking him hostage into Gaza. You can see he's got blood on his shirt, bent over. It looks like he's terrified. You can see the smoke in the background. Yeah. All right. Here's another one. Okay, now we got this old lady, and I read about her today. She's very interesting. I think she's like 78 years old or something like that. She's a great grandmother. She's got like 7 kids, or 4 kids and 7 grandkids and 12 great grandkids or something like that. And they came in and they asked her for money first, and she gave them all the money, but then they wanted her. And so they took her, and you could see these guys. You can see these guys here in this golf cart. And she said something interesting. In fact, I took I copied what she said. Let me see if I can find it here. She said something very interesting. Because I remember when I saw this, Okay, I remember when I saw her picture because it looks like she's smiling. It looks like she's smiling. She's just been taken captive into Gaza, and it looks like she's smiling. But this is what she said. She said, I wouldn't give them the pleasure of seeing me afraid. I didn't cry. When they pointed a camera at my face, I smiled. The image was broadcast around the world. I was not going to give them the satisfaction of terrorizing me. Let me read that again. Now, this is the old lady. This is what the old lady said. And I remember when I saw this old lady, when I first saw, because this was on the first day, there's a video of them driving her, these heroic men uh, driving her on this golf cart to Gaza. And look what she said. She says, I wouldn't give them the pleasure of seeing me afraid. She knew that that's what they wanted. They wanted to see her shaking and scared. She said, I wouldn't give them the pleasure of seeing me afraid. I didn't cry. When they pointed a camera at my face, I smiled. The image was broadcast around the world. I was not going to give them the satisfaction of terrorizing me. That there's a verse in the Quran where Allah commands Muhammad. He says, "Irhabunahum, irhabunahum." Let me see if I can find it. It's a Quran verse where it says, "Terrorize them." It's a command in the Quran. It says, "Terrorize them." Let me see. Let me see if I can find that verse. Surah Al-Baqarah 191. 191. Is that the one? Okay. اقتلوهم حيث ثقفتموهم ثقفتموهم وإخرجوهم من حيث أخرجوكم والفتنة أشد من القتل ولا تقتلوهم عند المسجد الحرام حتى يقتلوكم فيه فإن قتلوكم فاقتلوهم كذلك جزاء الكفر. Okay, that doesn't use the word irhabunahum. This one does say kill them and kill them and kill them and kill them. It says, let me see, but it doesn't say terrorize them. Let me see. Irhabun. I'm looking for the word irhabunahum. I think it's in chapter. Let me see if I could have it in English. Terrorize. Terrify. You see, the English translations are, but you know what? Now I want to get it. Um, okay, I will cast terror. 8:12. Let me see how that one goes. 8:12. Quran 8:12. I know a lot of, especially like CNN, and try to show that Islam doesn't do these things, doesn't command these things, but وَإِذْ يُوحَى رَبَّكَ إِلَى مَلَائِكَةٍ إِنِّي مَعَكُمْ فَثَبِّتُوا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا سَالِكِينَ فِي قُلُوبِ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا الرُّعْبَ. Okay, so here it says, put terror, cast terror into the hearts of the unbelief. فَأُضْرُبْ فوق الأعناق, hit them above their necks. In other words, cut their heads off, and their fingers, cut their fingers off. This is 8:12. Okay, yeah, I will cast terror. Okay, let me see if I can find that verse 2 that says, uh, I will cast terror. Okay, okay. Let's see. These a lot of these translations have been sanitized to kind of show, uh, cast terror into their hearts. Okay, Ahzab 33:26. Let's look at 33:26. Okay, here it is. انزل الذين ظهروا من أهل الكتاب من سياس. Okay, and he brought down the people of the book who supported the enemy alliance and cast terror into their hearts. So, there is this thing about terrorizing. It's a command in the Quran. So, anyway, she said, I wasn't going to give them. Let me read again what she said. She said, I wouldn't give them the pleasure of seeing me afraid. I didn't cry. When they pointed a camera at my face, I smiled. The image was broadcast around the world. I was not going to give them the satisfaction of terrorizing me. Okay, so. Hello, Hunset, Coward Islam. Hello, God bless you guys. Never forget Mus'hab Sunday. All the. Yes. And, all right, let's look at another one here. Um, okay, this is apparently this is when all the bodies, I think this was near the concert of the Nova Festival, the people who were killed there. Okay, now this was a very, very famous, very, very bad. These guys, they took this woman, and if you remember, her pajamas were completely soaked in blood. Apparently they had raped her, many times, and took her. Now, I'm not sure what happened to her. I'm not sure what happened to her, if she has been released or what her situation is. Um, this was one of the most famous videos, though. Her pajamas were drenched in blood, and she was being marched into this van. And there was a bunch of guys around her, not just one. Okay, now this is Gaza. This is what happened to Gaza as a result of what Hamas did. Uh, Now, having lived there, I'll tell you, it doesn't look. I mean, it always looked kind of like this. It's always, there's been so many wars there, and but this is really bad. Look at all the homes, and quite often, what happened is that there were tunnels underneath these buildings, and these tunnels were used by Hamas to hide the hostages, and when I lived in Gaza, I remember hearing about the tunnels. I remember hearing they're digging tunnels, that they were employing all these people digging tunnels. I remember hearing about it, but I always understood it to mean that these tunnels were for like to smuggle goods or to bring goods into Gaza, like food and milk for babies and to help people. I didn't realize it was going to be used for this. So maybe I was naive. Okay. So, yeah. And then here's the reaction in America. Okay. It's almost like the next day. It was almost like a celebration. Like these guys are celebrating what happened in Israel because it was kind of like spontaneous. The day after the attack on Israel, before Israel actually attacked Gaza, American students wanted to celebrate what Hamas did. And look at this: from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea. Now, from the river to the sea means from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, and it does mean the annihilation of Israel. Okay, this doesn't mean peaceful coexistence. And if you want any proof, go see what they did to the Jews in any other Muslim country. Go see what Muslims do to Jews in any other Muslim country. How many Muslims are there in other Muslim countries? Saudi Arabia, um, Bahrain, go look, Egypt, Morocco. Morocco has some. Okay, Algeria. Okay, now they see these countries that were French alliance countries. Were a little bit less severe to the Jews than the ones that were British colonies. But how many Jews are in Lebanon? How many Jews are in Syria? I think there's 14. And so, what do you think is going to happen if the dream of from the river to sea happens? What's going to happen to the Jews? There's 7 million Jews in Israel right now. What will happen to them? These are just stupid kids, and they're living in the luxury of America. They should go to Gaza, like I did, lived there for 6 years. These guys are well fed, obviously. Look at them. So it bothered me that these celebrations broke out, or these marches broke out a day after the attack, almost like they're a celebration of the attack that happened on Israel. Okay. And then there's this in front of Washington. Okay. Stop the Israeli genocide. Okay, now this would have been later. We bleed together, free Palestine. Okay. Israeli genocide, spelled with the S. Genocide. This looks like an Israeli guy with an Israeli flag. I wonder what they did to him, because I think this is Columbia University, and so I wonder what they did to him with the Israeli flag. Okay, And then Israeli apartheid and genocide funded by the U.S. Workers' World Party, as communists. It's interesting that communists are kind of behind this, isn't it? Magog. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Now, this is all communists right here. These are all communists because the Worker World Party, I mean, they're all Democrats. You know, Kamala Harris, defend Palestine. Got a picture there of the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. Then you got by any means, woe Palestine. Again, very well fed. Look at everybody there. They're very well fed, very healthy in the United States, of course. It would give them a lot more gravity if they were to go to Gaza, like I did. Dismantle the Israeli prison regime. Okay. Okay, stop the genocide in Gaza. Harvard out about. Okay, now this is at Harvard University. Apartheid and Harvard out of occupied Palestine. Okay, you know what that tells you guys? This is not just talking about stop the genocide in Gaza. It's also talking about getting the Jews out of occupied Palestine, which is all of Palestine. It's not just the West Bank or Gaza. And so these are words that the West has been using, and they have usurped them for the cause of the Palestinian cause. So, yeah, so these are some of the images of October 7th, things that happened on October 7th. Let's just look at the news real quick, see what's going on in the world. Donald Trump says there's a lot of bad genes among migrants in the U.S. 1,000 people marched in Canada to commemorate October 7th. Israelis gather across the country to watch civilian October 7th memorial. October 7th was paradise turned into hell. And here is Yahya Sinwar, is still alive. He has reestablished contact with Qatar. He's some people say that he's been wearing women's clothes and hiding, but also say that there's a bunch of hostages. He has a bunch of hostages around him to protect him. Very heroic. There's a special ceremony at the Western Wall for October 7th. And I watched earlier today, says Christian leaders pray in Jerusalem for Israelis affected by Hamas atrocities. Okay. Christian leaders gathered in Jerusalem on Sunday to pray for the 1,200 Israelis murdered and kidnapped by Hamas. I'm proud to be in Jerusalem with 100 Christian leaders, Bishop Robert Stearns stated. A symbolic yellow chair beside him reminding audience of Israelis still in Hamas captivity. We landed in Israel last week and experienced firsthand the feeling of rushing to bomb shelters. Yes. All right, let's see what in the U.S. if there's anything going on. Who's FEMA? Okay. Okay. CBS Mornings host Tony Dokoupil ripped by bosses over tense Israel interview with Ta-Nehisi Coates, sparking stiff backlash. CBS brass have reported called out the morning show anchor Tony whatever. Okay, here he is. Yeah, okay. Okay. I think that guy got in trouble. His tough grilling. Okay. About controversial pro-Palestinian framing of Hamas's war with Israel. Okay, CBS News boss Wendy McMahon and Adrienne Rourke, the president of content development for the news division, claimed the CBS Mornings host brought his own bias to the interview with Coates during a meeting with workers on the 1 year anniversary of October 7th massacre. They said the sit down conducted last week with Doc Kupol and anchors Gail King and Nate Burleson did not meet the editorial standards for impartiality, though they declined to provide details. Okay. We will still hold people accountable, but we will do so objectively, which means checking our biases, opinions at the door, right? We are here to report the news without fear or favor. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly if this guy came out, which side he came out. I thought, okay, when someone comes on the air with a one-sided account of a very complex situation, which Coates acknowledges that he has, it's my understanding as a journalist, we are obligated to challenge that worldview so viewers can have access to the truth. They usually challenge Christians and Republicans, but not Democrats. Another CBS source, this is more failure of CBS News not reading the books. Okay, whatever. So that I'm not really sure, where this, what side these guys came out. Then there was an anti-Israel protesters swarm Washington Square Park as 2,000 marchers make way uptown to October 7th. Okay. Anti-Israel protesters show true colors by celebrating October 7th. See, that's the problem I have with some of the Palestinian protests is that it looks like they're celebrating what happened on October 7th, and that's what I don't like, and so. Okay, guys. Well, I wanted to do something about October 7th, and I'm not sure I did a lot. It's hard to do a lot. It's a subject that is so sensitive and so many negative feelings about it. And so, anyway, I just wanted to kind of get on the map, having said something about it. I've talked about different aspects of it before, like about Israel, about the Palestinian situation, and all. But so, yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this, and it didn't really generate that much discussion, so which maybe is better, But anyway, for those of you who hung out, thank you for hanging out for a while. She is half Chinese. Okay. All right, you guys. Well, thank you for hanging out. And those of you who have been with us, God bless you. And, hopefully tonight we'll be back with another live stream. And if you haven't done it, please do it now. Jesus, help me. Jesus, forgive me. Jesus, come into my heart. We love you. And more importantly, he loves you. God bless.